Hello, fellow writers. My name is Laura, and welcome back to Learn to Writer, where we talk about the mental challenges of being a writer. If this is your first time here, I'm so happy to meet you. I'm glad to see you, and I hope you enjoy yourself. If you've been here before, then may the words be ever in your favor. After any amazingly popular book comes out, there are always going to be copycats, right? People who write similar but different in order to try and kind of jump on that bandwagon. Part of it is giving readers more of what they want, because they obviously wanted that, and also, trying to make some money off of what it is that they already know that the industry wants. Sometimes these books are successful in of themselves. The Percy Jackson series did fairly well after Harry Potter, being the same kind of idea of kid at a magical school, Camp Half-Blood. But anyway, that one did pretty well. A lot of them don't tend to do super well, or they do okay. Nothing else has ever been Harry Potter. This is why knowing why you want to write is so important. If you want to make a career as an author, then you have to know what the industry out there is doing. You have to know what's popular, you have to know what was popular and what might be becoming popular. Books are not a fast thing, right? If you're going to write a book in the wake of somebody else's success, you're looking at probably a couple of years before it comes out, unless you're self-publishing, that kind of thing. On the flip side of this, if you follow these trends very closely, then you will never be the trend, right? If you're always taking whatever's super popular at the time, or vampires are becoming very popular, I'm going to write a vampire book, then you will never be the book that creates that trend. This is, of course, just a balancing act that you have to play. You have to know what there is out there that people want, and then you also have to write something new and exciting that is uniquely your own, uniquely your voice. Part of it is also then just waiting to see what happens. And the thing that I want to emphasize, though, is making sure that you know why you're writing, which stories you're writing. So as an exercise, I want you to write down 5 or 10 story ideas that you have, like things that you may or may not have been bouncing around in your brain. You're more like me, you've got 5 or 10 story ideas just bouncing around in your brain. If you don't, then, come up with 5, right? You can stay on the lower end of that, and just 5 story ideas. Then I want you to take a look at those story ideas, decide what it is about that story idea you would be excited to write. You don't have to do that for all 5, but try and do it for all 5. What is it about that story idea that you'd be really excited to explore in your writing, what you'd be really excited to find out what happens? One of my story ideas is set in the real world, but where Norse gods are real and Yggdrasil is real and all that kind of stuff, and I have a teenage girl who runs into a version of Loki that has been trapped in the body of an 8-year-old child, and then she is trying to help him regain his place in Asgard. For me, the reason that I'm excited about this story is, number one, I really like Norse mythology. I researched it a ton specifically for this book, and did so way back before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then that came out, and that Loki and Tom Hiddleston, and I love Tom Hiddleston, but that book kind of went on the back burner because I wasn't convinced that anybody would be interested in my version of Loki with that all being out there. I've revisited that since the Marvel Cinematic Universe has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. Part of the revisiting of that, I then realized that the story was way too normal. Of all the stories that I have ideas for, this one is one that actually would be, that I would classify and wanted to write as YA fantasy. And YA fantasy has a very specific structure. There's certain, there's tropes in an actual YA fantasy, as opposed to books that are put in YA fantasy that are not YA fantasy, but that's a completely different conversation. This book has a lot of those tropes. And then I realized that I didn't like that. Since having written that, I have written 3 or 4 other books. I mean, I've only polished 2, but I've written 3 or 4 other books. I've come to learn a bit about my own writing process, and one of those things is I really like taking tropes and putting them on their head. That story, I realized, okay, I've got the really strong tropes already in here from when I created it back then. How do I put that on its head? I figured out a really good idea, and that idea, it in itself excites me. Taking a trope, taking what people expect, and then turning it on its head is just something that I really, really enjoy doing. I'm also excited to get to write those characters, because I developed a lot of the main characters back when I wrote it before, and now I am looking forward to taking my increased skill as an author, because this was probably over a decade ago I wrote this story. I'm looking forward to all of the growth I have made as a writer and putting that into these characters. So right now, what does the industry say about this kind of thing? Well, the industry says that romantasy is really big. That one is kind of that's another like can of worms, but still. And like I said, this series would be written and published as a YA fantasy. Whether or not I traditionally publish it, I would probably still market it as a YA fantasy. Stories using different mythologies was really, really big around Percy Jackson. I mean, it's always been kind of big. You know, you take a mythology and you make it your own and whatever. It's dropped off just a little bit. It's not like it's gone. It's not like it's forever, whatever. Norse mythology is definitely not as well known as Greek, but since it's still in the white wheelhouse, it's still one of the ones that's known. I mean, because of the MCU, that version of Norse mythology is very popular in people's minds. Of course, there are other things that I have planned for this story that might take it off the public consumption list anyway, so I did at the time put my story on the back burner because of Marvel's MCU universe with Loki. You know, with Thor and Loki. I know Thor is supposed to be the main character. And I put that on the back burner because I knew that, number one, I wasn't going to be able to finish it in time. And number two, you know, I did not want to compete with that. And it is a consideration that you have to have. I waited until that passed. I am planning on that being my next book that I'm going to be working on, probably. Barring anything else. While you know what the industry is doing, you still want to be excited about the story. There are definitely some writers who can go out there and just write whatever they need to in order to make a paycheck, and that's great because, you know, that's what their thing is. And the breakout amazing stories are the ones that are closer to a passion project. And in video games, one of the things that my partner has said is that there was a period where we were getting new, innovative, amazing video games, and that dropped off about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where we haven't really had any amazing games in the volume that we had back then, right? There's been breakout hits. And then the same thing that we're seeing these days is that a lot of the breakout hits are coming from smaller studios. The bigger studios are doing what's popular at the time. They're rehashing old stuff, and then we get video games like Baldur's Gate 3, we get video games like Silksong, we get video games like Clair Obscur. They just seem to come out of nowhere, but they're passion projects. While I'm not going to discourage you for following the trends or any of that kind of stuff, because there's merit in that as well, I'm always following the most creative route because that's just kind of who I am as a person, and that means that's kind of what I am going to portray to the people who are watching this video because I'm me. I'm going to encourage you to be excited about what you're excited about and be aware of the industry. Because knowing what is popular it can influence you in subconscious ways that will probably be to your benefit, but you really, really want to know exactly why you're excited about your stories, because you are going to be spending a lot of time with them, you are going to be having a lot of pain over them and struggle and all that kind of stuff, and you want it to at least be something that you really, really want to write. And to quote from the great manga Bakuman, you can write what you want and hope that people like it, or you can write what people like and hope that you want it. So if you like this video, go ahead and like this video. If you'd like to see some more of my videos, then go ahead and subscribe, and I will be putting up more videos. And I will see you guys in that next video. Okay, bye-bye.